I'm currently a 23-year-old, 1 year out of college, and over the past couple of years, I've accumulated 9 different credit cards. Today, I'll be going through my entire credit card journey from card number 1 to card number 9, and I'll be showing you not only what cards I have, but why and when I added them, the credit limits on those cards, and how I use those cards today, so buckle up. Before y'all ask, I do have most of the data points at the time of me applying for most of these cards in my Watch Me Apply playlist that I'll link up here and in the description for you. But if you want a high-level overview pretty quickly, just know that I've always had above a 700 credit score when applying for a credit card, and I don't think my score's ever been higher than like a 770, so just keep that in mind. Hopefully through this video, you'll be able to see my strategy for optimizing all of my highest spend categories while helping me travel the world for free, or pretty dang close to it, while also trying to avoid some of the biggest credit card mistakes that people make along the way. Also, before we dive in, if there are any credit cards that I talked about in this video that interest you, one massive way to support the channel at no additional cost to you is by checking out the links in my description before you apply for those cards. I know you may get tired of hearing people say this, but it seriously does help support the channel, so I really appreciate you for doing so. But now let's zoom back to August of 2020 when I was 20 years old and about to start my junior year of college at the University of Texas. At this time in my life, I had the habit of just using a debit card for every single one of my purchases, and that's just what I assumed everybody did. However, I quickly realized that I was missing out on a ton of value that I could have been getting if I just used a credit card instead of a debit card for all these purchases. Luckily, in this year of 2020, I had a friend who worked for a very large bank in our hometown, and he actually introduced me to the world of credit cards. At this time, I was still banking with Wells Fargo because that's just what my family did, and that's what I started with whenever I was really young. But recently, my mom had changed her banking accounts over to Chase, and I wanted to follow suit with her at this time. So what I did is I went with my mom to a local Chase branch, and we kind of just went through the process of opening up a bank account for me. But while I was opening my Chase college checking account in the branch with the banker, he actually mentioned the idea of me possibly getting a student credit card. You know, at this point, I really didn't know much about building credit, but my mom thought it would be a good idea because up to this point, we really just had a few installments that they were paying in my name, so I didn't really have like my own credit report. Besides, I guess, a really small student loan that we took out my freshman year, but other than that, I really had nothing on my credit report. So I figured, why not? Might as well try to add the card if I can. Interestingly enough, though, this was not the actual start of my credit card journey because even when applying with a banker in branch, because of my lack of credit history, I was actually denied for the Chase Freedom Student credit card when I first tried to apply for it. But as is the common advice on YouTube and just in other credit card forums as well, the banker told me that since I just got started with Chase, if I left that checking account open for a while and just, used it like normal, I'd likely have a pretty easy time of getting approved for that Chase Freedom Student credit card down the line. So that's exactly what I did. I used that account for a few months, and then I reapplied for it online this time by myself and was instantly approved for the Chase Freedom Student, which was the very first credit card I added to my setup. And just to keep the timelines in check, I officially opened this card in December of 2020, so that was about 3 months after I opened that Chase college checking account in branch. Today, this card is actually not active at all anymore, but don't worry, I did not cancel this credit card. On that note, I really don't ever recommend that you close your oldest credit card unless you, for some reason, have a credit card that has an annual fee as your very first credit card and you're not getting positive value from it anymore. And the reason for that is because your oldest credit card is going to prop up your average age of accounts because, once again, it's your oldest credit card. However, if you did need to cancel it for whatever reason, it should age on your credit report for another 10 years, helping you to build more credit history with it, even once it's closed. Again, though, if you have a no annual fee card that isn't causing you any trouble, I would not recommend canceling these cards. This really only applies to people that might have gotten suckered into a card that has a monthly or annual fee that they want to get out of. However, instead of canceling this card, I actually product changed this card last year into the OG Chase Freedom card. The reason I made that change is because the Chase Freedom Student only gives you 1x back on every single purchase, and once I started accumulating more cards into last year, I figured I'd product change it to the OG Chase Freedom because it acts pretty similarly to the Chase Freedom Flex card. And by that, I mean it does give me 5x back on the rotating quarterly categories that the Chase Freedom Flex does, but other than that, it just gives you 1x back on everything else. Also, as you can see, this card is a Visa credit card, unlike the Chase Freedom Flex, which is a MasterCard, so you're not going to get those cell phone protections and other MasterCard benefits. And also, this card cannot be applied for fresh, just so you know. I had to product change to this card, and this used to be a really cool trick because then you could leave open a slot for your Chase Freedom Flex in order to get the sign-up bonus for it if you wanted to do that. However, these days I've heard they're cracking down on this pretty hard, so I'm going to hold on to this card for dear life. The credit limit on my Chase Freedom Student, or now my OG Chase Freedom, is only $2,000, and obviously that's not a very high limit, but I'm technically not using this card all that much. On that note, I should probably make a dedicated video about this, but I actually would not recommend that you request a credit limit increase with your Chase credit cards. Normally, I think that's fine to do, and I've done that with my other cards like the Citi Custom Cash, but Chase as a lender does not limit you on the number of credit cards you can have with them, but they actually limit you on the overall credit limit you have across all of their cards. So while yes, this does have a very low limit, I'm not necessarily going to request a credit limit increase because I want to get other Chase cards down the line that I'm going to be using a lot more. Now let's go ahead and fast forward 8 or 9 months to August of 2021 when I'm about to go into my senior year of college at UT. At this point, I got pretty deep into the YouTube credit card community, as a lot of us have, obviously. So instinctively, I was ready to just dive into through the credit card game as fast as I can, but at the same time, I knew that that wasn't necessarily the smartest move. As I mentioned, at this point, I'd already been waiting about 9 months since I got my very first credit card to then apply for my second one, because I wanted to not only get the habits of using a credit card under my belt, but also let my credit history build up so I could actually get approved for a higher tier card that I really wanted. And as you can tell, that falls exactly in line with that 6 to 12 month recommendation I make for people to wait after getting their very first credit card. And it just goes to show that I don't just say these things, I actually did live by them. But at this point, my expenses were continuing to rise, and I wanted to make sure I captured all of my spending at least a base minimum rate that I was pretty happy with. So of course, that led me to applying for the Chase Freedom Unlimited credit card. In general, I usually preach that you get a catch-all credit card pretty early on in your credit card journey, because you want to be able to ensure that your base earning rate is higher than the normal 1x that a normal credit card will give you. And although there are a bunch of 2% credit cards out there, and the Chase Freedom Unlimited only gives you 1.5x back as the base earning multiplier, this card is much more than just a catch-all card, and that's why it's one of my highest recommended cards ever. You also get 3x back on dining in drugstores, as well as 5x back on travel booked through Chase's Ultimate Rewards portal, which is obviously very nice. But on top of that, you can redeem these points for cash back if you wanted to at a rate of 1 cent per point. But if you hold on to all of your Chase points until you get a higher tier Chase card, you actually eventually unlock the ability to transfer those points out to travel partners. And in doing so, you'll maybe even double, triple, or even more times the value of your Chase Ultimate Rewards points by redeeming in that fashion. And you can combine your points from any Chase Ultimate Rewards points earning cards onto your highest tier Chase card. And that goes for either personal or business cards. That's why I usually recommend that you kind of just sit on your Chase points that you earn until you have a higher tier Chase card that you can then transfer out to travel partners if that's how you want to redeem. Even this early on in the credit card game, I understood the importance of laying the right foundation for me to be able to better organize all of the credit cards I was planning on adding in the future. And by being obsessed with credit card YouTube content, one app that I found and have used ever since the very beginning of my credit journey is Max Rewards. Max Rewards is an app that allows you to pull all of your credit card information, even if those cards come from different lenders, all into one app, which is really nice. Speaking of rewards balances here, this has been one way that I've tracked all of my rewards balances across all of my different credit cards. You can also set a cent per point value to all of the rewards that you've earned. So even if you've earned 100,000 Chase points, if you do value those points at 2 cents per point in the app, you can change that. That way it shows that those points are worth $2,000 instead of $1,000. On top of that, I do love to use Max Rewards because it tells me when all of my credit card bills are due, even if they all fall on different dates. One extra cool feature whenever you start to add a lot of cards and want to start activating all of the credit card offers that those credit cards give you is that Max Rewards has a paid tier called Max Rewards Gold that will actually activate all of those credit card offers for you automatically. It also activates the 5x rotating quarterly categories on my OG Chase Freedom card for me, and it would do the same for you. I'm personally somebody that's found a lot of value in this app, and while they are a sponsor of the channel, I genuinely have used them since the beginning of my credit card journey, and that's the only reason that I took them on as a sponsor in the first place. We've only just barely scratched the surface of what this app can actually do for you. And if you're interested in just trying out the free features, be sure to use the link down in my description to download the app. And whenever you sign up and are prompted for a promo code, please use the code Spencer in order to show that I sent you to the app. That not only helps support me, but it also will give you a free month of Max Rewards Gold that you can use down the line if you do decide to upgrade. Thank you so much to Max Rewards for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to the content. At this point though, you may start to see a theme, and that's that I'm still sticking within Chase's ecosystem. The reason I did that is because it's very common advice out there that you want to build out your Chase Trifecta early on because of Chase's 524 rule. The Chase Trifecta is just a combination of any 3 Chase Ultimate Reward point earning cards, and generally that's going to be a combination of the Chase Freedom Flex, Chase Freedom Unlimited, and Chase Sapphire Preferred. But like we just talked about, that combination is so powerful because you can then use that higher tier card, the Chase Sapphire Preferred in that case, to transfer out to travel partners and increase the value of your points. The Chase 524 rule that I also just mentioned is a rule that states if you've been approved for 5 or more personal credit cards in the past 24 months, Chase will automatically deny you for your next credit card application with them. So a lot of people, including myself, will recommend that you get Chase cards early on because then you just don't have to worry about that rule. You can add all of the Chase cards you kind of want early on and then move on to other lenders after that whenever you're not as worried about that rule. As for how I use the Chase Freedom Unlimited these days, I still use it as a catch-all card for that 1.5x multiplier, but with the other cards I have, I don't really use it in the other categories I mentioned. And honestly, I do have 2 other catch-all cards right now, so this card's gotten a little bit less use in recent past, but if I'm low on Chase points and want to accumulate a few more of them than with another lender, then I'll still use the Chase Freedom Unlimited. Also, I forgot to mention that I was approved for this card with a $4,300 credit limit, so for those of y'all that are curious, that's the limit on this card. This is one I've actually considered manually requesting a credit limit increase on with Chase because I did use it so much in the past, but luckily I held off on that, and I think that's a good move because now I just have more total overall credit limit that I can get from Chase rather than storing it all on this card that I don't use anymore. Granted, I could transfer some of the credit limit from this card onto another Chase card that I want to get approved for down the line, but that's a conversation for another day. Now let's jump forward to January of 2022, where I'm really wanting to step up my game a bit and hopefully complete that Chase Trifecta we just talked about. Now that the new year's rolled around, I'm ready to become a new man in the credit card game and get my first metal premium travel credit card. So instead of going all in with a card like the Chase Chase Sapphire Reserve, I decided it'd be a good time to apply for the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. Unfortunately, at this time, there was no real elevated welcome offer on this card, so I applied for it whenever it had the 60,000 point welcome offer on it. And at the same time, I knew folks that had gotten approved for the 80 or 100,000 point welcome offer. So if you have an opportunity to jump on one of those, I'd do it. But the beauty of Chase cards is that as a lender, Chase will allow you to get multiple welcome bonuses on each of their cards. Generally, you just have to wait a certain amount of time, like 4 years if you're trying to get another bonus on a Sapphire card, or 2 years if you're trying to get another bonus on a Freedom card. But like I said, we're in January of 2022, and I'm trying to prepare myself to apply for the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. I was pretty nervous about this application because it would be my first credit card application for a card with an annual fee. On top of that, it's also a Visa signature card, which requires a minimum credit limit of $5,000. However, the $95 annual fee was easily justifiable for me with how much travel I'd be booking through this card, so I decided to just go for it and apply. To my surprise, I was actually instantly approved for the Chase Sapphire Preferred with a $10,100 credit limit. And that was way higher than my 2 previous credit limits combined, so needless to say, I was pretty excited about that. And once that partially metal card came in the mail, man, I was hooked on the credit card game from then on out. As for how I use this card today, shockingly enough, I actually really don't put much spin on this card. It does give you some elevated earning categories that the Chase Freedom cards don't give you, like 2x back on miscellaneous travel, 3x back on streaming services and stuff like that. So I do put some purchases in those categories every once in a while, but honestly, I mainly use this card in order to transfer my points out to Chase's travel partners. I always like to call this card the pass-through entity for all of my Chase points because that's exactly how I use this card. It also does give you a 25% boost on all of your Chase points in the travel portal and stuff like that, but most people love this card since it gives you the ability to transfer out to those travel partners we mentioned, and one of my favorites is Hyatt because you can really get a ton of value with them. Obviously, with that card under my belt, I was super excited and I used that card as much as I could, honestly. But now let's go ahead and zoom forward to April of 2022, or about a year ago from today. At this point, I was getting a lot of value from my Chase Trifecta, but I also realized that I had a lot of earning categories I was missing out on still. One of my highest spending categories being gas, and I did not have that covered at all within the Chase Trifecta. That is one of its flaws. You probably know where I'm headed from here, but just 3 months after applying for my Chase Sapphire Preferred in April of 2022, I decided to apply for the Citi Custom Cash. And luckily, I was instantly approved for this card with a $3,000 credit limit. That limit kind of sucked, to be honest, but I was honestly just really happy to get approved for a Citi card because I had heard they were very inquiry sensitive and I had no previous relationship with them at the time of me applying. However, it obviously worked out pretty well and it instantly became my dedicated gas credit card. And actually, that's not technically correct because whenever I first got this card, I was still within the welcome bonus period for my Chase Freedom Unlimited. That gave me 5x back on gas stations for the first year of me having this card. So in the beginning, I actually used this card in other categories like groceries or restaurants, for example. But the one key thing I kept in mind about this card, and you should too if you're thinking about applying for it, is that you only ever want to use this card in one category per month. The reason for that is because this card will give you 5x back in your highest eligible spending category every single month, up to $500 worth of spend. But after that, it only gives you 1x back on all the other purchases you put on it. And so of course, Citi doesn't want you to be doing this, but what you should be doing to get the optimal value from this card is only putting one category of spend on it every single month. However, these days, since I'm out of that intro bonus period with my Chase Freedom Unlimited, this card is my dedicated gas card that I just leave in my car. I think there's an argument that this card can be used in anybody's setup, but obviously, like I mentioned earlier, I am somebody that is on team travel as I like to transfer my points out to travel partners. So you may be wondering, how the heck do I plan to use this card if it is a solely cashback credit card right now? And the answer to that is that I'm actually just stockpiling all of my Citi points. I haven't redeemed any of them yet because down the line, I plan on applying for the Citi Premier card, which unlocks the ability for me, similar to the Chase Sapphire Preferred, to transfer my points out to Citi's travel partners. Also, as I mentioned, the initial credit limit on this card was $3,000, and I wasn't super happy about that because even with just my gas purchases, my utilization on this card was higher than I would have liked it to be. So what I ended up doing last year is applying for a credit limit increase on my Citi Custom Cash, where I was instantly approved for a $1,500 credit limit increase, which brought my total credit limit to $4,500 and helped that utilization a little bit. At this point, I was really cooking with the credit card offers, and I was just super excited to keep going in the credit card game. And at the same time, I was honestly ready to step it up a little bit more and start to work in some other lenders that I knew were a little bit more on the luxury side of the game. So of course, the big time lender out there in the luxury space is American Express. On top of that, I still kind of needed a dedicated grocery card because that's another category that the Chase Trifecta is lacking in. And I was still using the custom cash for my dedicated gas card. So in June of 2022, I decided to apply for the Amex Gold card, in which I was instantly approved for. This was a huge step for me in the credit card game, not just because of the acclaim that American Express has with their luxury credit card products, but also because this was my first charge card and it came with an even heftier annual fee of $250. Now you may be wondering, what's the difference between a charge card and a credit card? Charge cards are basically credit cards with no preset spending limit in which you have to pay off the full balance on this card every single month. For me, this was no issue because that's just how I've always used my cards. I've always said if you use a credit card like a debit card, that's how you win the credit card game. But as for the annual fee, on the other hand, this was still pretty scary for me because $250 a year was a lot more than I'd been paying in the past. But before I applied though, I made sure sure that I would naturally get positive value from the credits that came on this card. This is not going to be a review of the Amex Gold card, but for those of y'all that don't know, you can effectively get back $240 of that annual fee in the form of dining credits and Uber Cash credits. From my calculations, I knew that my effective annual fee would be pretty dang close to just $10, if not $10. And with the 4x back I'd be getting on groceries as well as dining, I knew that this card just was a no-brainer for me. Currently, this is my dedicated food card. I use it for the 4x back on groceries and dining, and I honestly don't ever see this card not being my dedicated food card. The only reason it wouldn't be is if I was not able to use the credits at that point and I needed to cancel this card, because obviously I don't want to be spending $250 a year on this card if I'm not using any of the credits. On top of that, like I mentioned, I'm on team travel, and the only way to really get good value from your Amex membership rewards points is to transfer those points out to travel partners. You can use them in Amex's travel portal and still get a respectable 1 cent per point, but you cannot use Amex membership rewards points for cashback. Well, I guess you can, but you're only going to be getting 0.6 cents per point, which is not good. So if you will not use the credits on this card naturally and you don't want to use your points for travel, then please don't get this card. Now let's get into the fun stuff, the beginning of my business credit card journey. We're now in October of 2022, where I am unfortunately sitting at 524 with Chase, meaning that if I apply for any more Chase cards, I'll be automatically denied. However, I did not want to stop applying for credit cards, and I also didn't want to add to that 524 account, so I was kind of stuck in a predicament. But as a lot of y'all know, there is one really great solution for that problem, and that's going to be business credit cards, of course. For those that are unaware, most business credit cards will not report to your personal credit report, meaning that they also do not add to your Chase 524 account. In addition to that, if you're a pre-existing Amex customer, Amex actually won't do any hard pulls on your credit report after that for the most part. Therefore, I knew that I wanted to apply for a business card, but not only that, I'd like to apply for an Amex business card if I can. So my first business card that I chose to apply for was the American Express Blue Business Plus, in which I was luckily instantly approved for a $10,000 credit limit. This was an awesome card to add to my setup because not only did it not increase my Chase 524 account, but it also did not give me a hard pull on my personal credit report. And for those of y'all that are wondering, I did apply for this card as a sole proprietor, and it was my first ever business credit card application, and I was instantly approved, so you may be able to do it as well. Originally, I planned on using this card as part of building out my Amex trifecta, and although it is a business credit card, after a lot of research, I came to the conclusion that it's really not a big deal to put personal expenses on a business credit card, mainly because banks never check that kind of stuff, but even if they did, I'm pretty sure they kind of look away from it because you're actually using their cards and that's how they get paid. However, these days I do have like 3 catch-all credit cards, as I mentioned, so instead of using this for personal expenses, I actually genuinely just try to use it for my business expenses. The reason for that is because I do run this YouTube channel as a business, so separating out my business and personal expenses really helps me during tax season. Obviously, this could change over time, but for now, it's my business catch-all credit card that gives me 2x back on every single purchase, and it does earn Amex membership rewards points since it's the Amex Blue Business Plus and not the Amex Blue Business Cash. So with those Amex membership rewards points, I can combine them with my Amex points that I earn on my Amex Gold card, and then I can transfer those points out to Amex's famous travel partners like Hilton or Delta or whoever you might like. After getting approved for that card and getting a taste of the business credit card life, I knew I wanted more. After waiting a couple more months, now in December of 2022, I had officially dropped back under 524 and was sitting at 424 with Chase. That now unlocked the ability for me to apply for Chase's credit cards. And I could have just jumped right back in and applied for another Chase personal card, but that would push me back up to 524 right away. At the same time though, I'm now not only able to apply for Chase's personal cards, but their business cards as well. And in applying for their business cards, I do have to be under 524 to get approved for them, but once you are under 524 and apply for one of their business cards, if you're approved, they do not add to your 524 count. So equipped with that knowledge, I figured, well, I might as well try to go for a Chase business card at this point. It also happened to be perfect timing because the no annual fee Chase Inc. business cards were coming with their all-time high welcome offers of 90,000 points after spending $6,000 in the first 3 months. So I decided to try my luck on the Chase business side, and I applied for the Chase Inc. Cash as a sole proprietor in December of 2022 and was instantly approved for the card with a credit limit of $3,000. This limit was actually a lot lower than I was expecting after getting approved for a $10,000 credit limit with Amex on the business side, and it was actually really annoying because I wanted to put more than a $3,000 charge on this card in order to hit the welcome bonus, and I was not able to split up that charge, so it really kind of screwed me whenever I was trying to hit that welcome bonus. But of course I had to get creative with it and obviously ended up hitting the welcome bonus anyways without overspending. That way I was able to lock in 90,000 Chase points on a no annual fee card, which is pretty insane. The main reason besides the welcome bonus that I wanted this card is because it does come with some 5x categories that most other cards don't have. The main ones that were interesting to me were 5x back on cell phone, internet, and cable services. So these days I basically just use it for my phone and internet bills, and I'm getting 5x back on all those purchases while separating out my business expenses with those purchases as well. It's important to note that this does not give me any kind of cell phone insurance of any kind, and that's a risk I'm willing to take, I guess, at this point. But if you're really worried about that, then this probably would not be the best card for you to use for your cell phone bill. Also, I do hope to increase this credit limit over time because $3,000 is just, kind of low for me. But once again, rather than me manually applying for a credit limit increase, I'll just let them do it naturally if they want to, and if not, I don't really care because this is a business credit card that does not report to my personal credit report, and credit utilization will matter less on this card. Now, armed with 7 really solid credit cards at the end of last year, I knew I had to branch out a little bit and start to apply for some cards I, wasn't exactly ready for in the years past. And at the same time, in the beginning of 2023, I got word from my family that we may be taking a trip to Europe within the year, and up until this time, I did not have a credit card that gave me any luxury travel benefits at all. The Chase Sapphire Preferred and Amex Gold are kind of pseudo travel credit cards, but they really don't give you any elevated experiences when you're traveling. They just give you the ability to use those points that you've earned on your cards for travel. With that being said, I knew I had about 4 main options that I could choose from in the luxury travel credit card game, that being the Amex Gold card, Chase Sapphire Reserve, Hilton Aspire, and Capital One Venture X. With the amount of hype that this card had been getting in 2022 and how easy it was to justify the $395 annual fee on it, I decided to dip my toes into the luxury travel credit card game by applying for the Capital One Venture X credit card in February of 2023, where I was instantly approved for a $20,000 credit limit. With this card, I knew I'd be able to upgrade my experience whenever I'm traveling, particularly abroad, because now I had access to a lot of airport lounges that should cover me, at least in most airports. And on top of that, it gave me a credit for global entry or TSA pre-check, which would be really helpful whenever I'm making those international trips like I was expecting to make this year. At the same time, of course, this card also has a $300 annual travel credit and 10,000 anniversary miles that you get on the card every single year for renewing it. So I knew the annual fee would pay for itself with just 1 trip a year through Capital One's travel portal, which is why it's kind of the best beginner luxury travel credit card out there and why I chose to apply for it this year. Also, needless to say, a $20,000 credit limit is nothing to scoff at, so I was super excited about that, and it seemed like y'all were too in my Watch Me Apply video for this card, so I'm really appreciative of y'all for that. Currently, this card is in my wallet not only for those luxury travel benefits we just talked about, but also because it serves as a really good catch-all credit card. It actually has a base earning rate of 2x back on every single purchase, as well as some other elevated earning categories when booking travel through Capital One's travel portal. As I've mentioned multiple times, while I did already have another catch-all credit card in the Chase Freedom Unlimited on the personal side, I've been pretty well stocked up on Chase points for a while now, so using the Capital One Venture X as my catch-all credit card just makes sense because I want more of their miles. Plus, I'm getting an extra 0.5x on every purchase, which is pretty nice. And on top of that, it's one of my favorite design cards on the market, so it never feels bad pulling this one out of the wallet. Now let's fast forward to basically present day, about a month ago in April of 2023, which is when I applied for my 9th credit card. My application for the Capital One Venture X put me back at 524 with Chase, but I still wanted to add more cards, of course. Once again, I knew that Amex's business credit cards not only would not increase my Chase 524 count, but I would not get a hard pull for them, and I kind of wanted another ghost application on my credit report with a new card under my belt. And in addition to that, I had a pretty large Amazon purchase coming up for my Creator Conversations episode I did with Daniel Braun, so getting rewarded for a business purchase on Amazon was something I was looking for. Luckily for me, Amex actually does have a co-branded business credit card in the Amex Amazon Business Prime card, and not only would that card give me 5x back on all of my Amazon purchases, but it also came with a $125 Amazon gift card. Therefore, in April of 2023, I applied and was approved for the Amex Amazon Business Prime card with a credit limit of $12,000. One thing to note about this application is that it actually was my first business credit card application under my LLC. So honestly, it felt really good that I was approved for this with no questions asked, because I know a lot of times when you apply as a corporation of some kind, they usually like to request other documents because of that, but luckily it didn't happen to me. At the same time though, this card isn't all good necessarily, because technically this is my 2nd credit card as part of Amex's 5 credit card limit. As you recall from earlier, I have one other Amex credit card with a preset credit limit in the Amex Blue Business Plus. And Amex has this rule where they only allow you to get 5 of their credit card products. You can get 10 of their charge card products like the Amex Gold and Platinum card, but for credit card products, you can only get up to 5. And technically that's not necessarily true, because some people start getting denied at 4 credit cards with Amex and some can get up to 6, but at the end of the day, they do limit you on the number of credit cards you can have. Going forward though, this card will be used as my dedicated business Amazon card. Of course, I could use this on my personal expenses as well, but especially since I applied for this card under my LLC, I want to separate those expenses as much as possible. A ton of my business purchases are made on Amazon, so the ability to get 5x back on all of those purchases while separating out those expenses for tax season made this card a no-brainer for me, especially also because it was a ghost credit card to my personal credit report and had literally no effect on me, so that was pretty nice. And now here we are 9 cards later with plenty more to add. Soon enough, I want to make an updated credit card roadmap video so you know exactly what cards I want to apply for next in 2023 at least, but obviously we're going to put that in a different video because this one's pretty dang long. As I said earlier though, if you'd like to support the channel at no additional cost to you and are interested in any of these credit cards or any other credit cards I've talked about on my channel, please feel free to check the links down in my description below before you apply for your next card. And if you want to know how I manage all 9 of these credit cards personally, then go ahead and check out this video next, where I not only explain that process, but give you a free downloadable template so you can do the same. As always, Odin and I both want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing subscribing to the channel, and I'll catch you guys next time.